Hi there, this is Miss Caitlin from Fibo Kids Art Academy and welcome to another daily draw. Today we are on day 21 and we're going to be making a porcupine today. Now our porcupine is done in oil pastel and watercolor. We're going to do a little bit of watercolor resist for the quills on his back, which will be really fun. And we're also going to do some oil pastel and watercolor and a little bit of shading on the pumpkins to make gradients. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Now you're going to need a pencil for this project, of course, or for this daily draw, I should say, and you're going to need a paper, preferably one that can handle watercolor. Now for your paper, make sure you turn it vertical so that it's standing up and down, tall like a milkshake, and let's go ahead and get started. You're going to see me draw with the Sharpie just so that you can see. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw our number at the top in a box. So go ahead and draw a box for yourself for day 21. Okay, so for the numbers, as always, you can kind of decide how you want them to be. You can even decorate the box if you want to. Like you could put leaves around it, fall leaves, vines, whatever you see fit. Now for our porcupine today, we're going to be using basic shapes to kind of construct the porcupine. So we're going to use basic shapes to guide us to get everything in the right spot. So that means you also might want to have an eraser on hand. Now the first shape I'm going to have us draw is a circle. Now the circle is going to help us place the porcupine's head. So I want us to draw a circle right about here on our paper. Now we're not going to need all of this circle at the very end. I'll show you what parts to erase. Next, we're going to draw the porcupine's nose and kind of mouth area. For the nose, I want you to draw a circle right here. It's pretty big. Porcupines have pretty big noses. And then for the mouth and the kind of rest of the nose area, it's going to be almost as if we were drawing a circle, but not quite. So kind of check out what I'm going to do. I'm going to start from the side of the nose, and I'm going to draw a big U shape, or almost like a circle in itself. Go ahead and erase this line because now we don't need that anymore. I'm going to highlight that with a red marker so that you can remember you want to erase this line. Now this is going to be ever so slightly tricky because there's a line we actually need to draw right here that kind of goes on top of this line that we need to erase. So you're going to take your pencil and you're just going to draw a line down the middle there. Almost like when we draw cats or dogs, the same kind of line, you know, it comes down from the nose down to the mouth. Now while we're here, let's go ahead and draw two little curved lines for the inside of the nose and a U shape on the side here for the mouth. Our porcupine is smiling today because he got a treat of pumpkins. Now for the eyes, we want to draw them kind of looking down towards the pumpkin. So normally I would say just draw a circle, but today I want you to draw two slanted ovals. Now it's okay if you can't see all of the second eye. It might be kind of hidden behind parts of the porcupine's face. And then you can draw two irises kind of looking down. And two eyebrows. Next, let's go ahead and draw the porcupine's ears. So on the top of the circle, either side right here and here, you can draw a rainbow, little rainbow, and a little rainbow. Oh, and if at any point you need to pause just to kind of take your time, please feel free. The porcupine is a little, there's just a lot of stuff we have to draw, so I totally understand if you just need a moment to practice and feel comfortable with your pace. All right, next we're going to go ahead and draw the quills of the porcupine. So you're going to actually follow this curve of the circle from before. So follow that curve, and then you're going to draw a big curved line out, and then draw a little spike, curved line down, make a spike, curved line down, make a spike, curved line down, make a spike. So you want 1, 2, 3, 4 of them today. Next, we're going to draw his little arms. Just one, actually, because he's kind of facing in like this 3/4 view, and his pumpkin is going to be in the way. So we're really only going to see one arm fully. So go underneath his chin right here, and you can draw a curved line out and back in, almost like a really long backwards C shape. Next, for his foot, you can start actually from where we left off on that arm, because he's kind of like hunched over trying to eat his pumpkin, and you can draw a line out, curve around, And then watch how I draw this line. I'm going to curve back in and up to connect to that last spike that we made. Okay? Now we can go ahead and erase a couple things. Now we actually don't need the rest of that circle anymore. So go ahead and take your eraser. You can erase the part of the circle here to about here. We want a little bit of the circle on the bottom just to kind of help show where the chin of the porcupine is, okay? So just erase that chunk of the circle. The rest you can keep. As for the pumpkins, we're gonna kind of draw, we'll see, let's go ahead and just start it. So go towards the top of the hand here, and we're going to draw a curved line. Draw a curved line back around, almost like a backward C. And then draw a little curve here. So you can see our hand is overlapping the pumpkin. And then you can draw a stem on top. Now, if you'd like, you can also draw more pumpkins. I'm going to draw more pumpkins. So I'm going to draw a curved line out, and connect. Draw a stem. And then this other pumpkin's going to kind of be overlapped by the one in the front. So I'm going to draw a curved line, and then I'll see a little bit of it here. And draw a stem. If you want to make the stems slightly more advanced, you can draw the tops. Do that, just draw a little curved line on each. And then pumpkins, they have kind of those divots in them. So you're going to take your pencil, draw a curved line, curved line, curved line, curved line, curved line, to show kind of the texture and the way that the pumpkins kind of look. Now we can technically see some of the porcupine's other side of his body. So this is going to be a little tricky because this is like tiny little lines, but we can still technically see some of the porcupine's belly here. So you're going to take your pencil and just draw a short little line right there. We can also technically see some of his other arm that's reaching around and grabbing the pumpkin. It's going to be the tiniest line, so just take your pencil, draw a tiny line right here. We're not going to see all of that hand or all of that paw, so just that little line will help kind of indicate where that's going to be. And last but not least, his other foot. Again, it's kind of covered by pumpkins, so just draw a little curve, So that way we have all the parts of the porcupine. Now, this is a little tricky to see with all of those eraser lines in the way, so I actually have another drawing prepared for what this looks like, probably on your paper. So all those lines are erased and this is what it looks like. So you can take a Sharpie or a permanent marker now and you can outline all of your pencil lines. Just make sure not to include any of the ones we wanted to leave out. You can again design your number and your box however you like. You can also take your permanent marker and fill in the irises of his eyes. We are going to begin with oil pastels for this. So go ahead and grab some oil pastels. If you don't have oil pastels, you could use crayon. And we are going to add in the oil pastel on the porcupine's body first. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a white oil pastel. And you are going to add in short lines onto the back of the porcupine. Now, I know that's nearly impossible to see because I'm using white oil pastel on white paper, but this is kind of where you want them to be placed. So you don't want to just do horizontal lines. Try and do curved little lines as you kind of move it down because that's how it'll kind of look on a real porcupine. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do brown strokes because you can also go in and do some brown strokes. Some quills are dark towards the bottom, just so that you can see how I'm placing these short lines for the quills. I'll go back in and add a white as well, but just so that we all know where we're placing things, I'll start with the brown. So you can do as many lines as you see fit. Just try not to fill in this whole area with oil pastel because we are going to do watercolor on top. All right, again, if you want to go in with some browns, you can do that just to kind of add a little more dimension to the quills. Now we're going to go ahead and fill in just some other parts of the porcupine picture. We're going to do some oil pastel on the pumpkins. So I want you to go ahead and find an orange oil pastel. We're not going to fill in the pumpkins with these, but instead take that orange oil pastel and just sort of outline the inside of each of those curved lines that we made. You can also outline the inside of the pumpkin. Remember, with oil pastel, you want to press hard, use little strokes. This is kind of a detailed area, so really take your time, pause the video so that you can go at a pace that's comfortable for you. You can bring that line down to the bottom if you'd like, and kind of adjust things to your liking. And we're going to do that on each of the pumpkins. So go ahead and take that oil pastel and just carefully outline some of those areas. Now, if you accidentally fill in too much, hey, that's all right, no worries. Maybe you can just fill in all of your pumpkins that way. As long as it looks consistent in your picture, it will look intentional. And I'm sure it'll turn out just as fine. All right, so there's my pumpkin in the back. I'm going to go ahead and work on this pumpkin here in the front. Again, just kind of outlining the insides of those curves. For the stems, I can fill those in with a brown oil pastel in just a moment. We're also going to add in some texture for the ground with oil pastel, and we'll do watercolor resist on that. Okay, curving around, just trying to keep this as neat as possible. Do try and keep those strokes neat, so that way it doesn't look like we scribbled. Okay, I'm gonna take the same brown I was using on the porcupine. I'm just gonna fill in the stems. Short little strokes. All right. We're gonna think about the grass or the ground. Now, I recommend using a green for the ground because if we try to use brown to make dirt, it's gonna kind of clash with our porcupine a little bit and it'll be hard to tell where the porcupine ends and the dirt begins. So I am going to use this kind of olivey green color, and I'm gonna do short horizontal strokes underneath the porcupine and the pumpkins. Now remember, the closer you make the strokes to the viewer, the longer they should be. The farther away you make the strokes from the viewer, it's you, the artist, or whoever's going to be looking at your piece, the shorter the strokes should be. You can also have fun adding in different colors of oil pastel, but again, we're going to be doing watercolor here later anyway, so we can add in shading then. All right, so that's going to conclude the oil pastel steps, and we're going to go ahead and switch now into some watercolor. Now, if you want to be more advanced, you can have a tray either for mixing colors, or you can use a plastic plate just to kind of, have ultimate control over the colors you want to use. You're probably going to need a medium-sized brush and a small brush for this, and I'm going to begin with the porcupine's body. So I'm going to use a medium-sized brush. I'm going to pick up brown, and I'm going to fill in all of the porcupine's body with this, even the little sections of the belly and the legs. I'm not going to fill in his mouth with this color. I do want that to be a different color so it stands out. Only thing you need to be careful of is making sure that you don't fill in your eyes. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so again, as I meet the area around the eyes, I'm just going to be very careful. If you want to be careful with your brush, you can either switch to a small brush or you can try and use the very top of the brush, that edge. I will fill in the nose with brown, but I want to make it a slightly different color just so it stands out. As well, you can kind of see as I'm working, I'm trying to keep my color as smooth as possible and as even as possible. That can be a little tricky sometimes, so just be patient with yourself and make sure that your paper doesn't have too much water on it as you're working. You'll definitely know if that starts to happen because your paper will begin to tear slightly. you'll get little speckles or little crumbs, and that's your paper saying, hey, I think I might tear if I get any more watercolor or water soaked in. In those cases, just let your paper dry completely before moving on. I know waiting can be hard, but it'll be all for the best in the end. So you can see, as I begin to add in the brown on top of that area where we did the quills, the white oil pastel is starting to really stand out. So we get that really interesting watercolor resist effect with the oil pastel. All right, so we're filling in now. I'm filling in the bottom of my porcupine. Maybe you're gonna fill in something else. Don't forget this little foot that we have here. It's the other porcupine's foot, or the porcupine's other foot, excuse me. And then filling in the bottom of the leg. Okay. Then we have here just the other little quill. And oh, that other ear. All right, so that's all filled in. So now what you can do is just go back, double check, make sure that all of your color is nice and even. I think I might need to make this quill over here a little bit darker. So I'm just adding in slightly more brown. Again, be very careful when you go to do something like that. If your paper is really wet, it may not like that you're adding even more watercolor. So just be mindful. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch to a small brush. I'm going to pick up some brown paint, put it in my tray, and I'm going to pick up just a little tiny bit of black, mix that in, and I'm going to use that for my porcupine's nose. You can also add this to the inside of the porcupine's ears, or if you want to be more advanced, you can add it as shading to the bottom of the porcupine or wherever it is you want the shadows to be. And I'll probably need to add it in here and probably onto the other side of the porcupine. It does look like I needed slightly more of that color. All right, next what we're gonna do is we are going to fill in the pumpkins. Oh, the mouth, of course. Fill in the mouth first before we move on to the pumpkins. I'm gonna do that with a red, kind of going for a pink look, so fill that in. And now it's time for the pumpkins. So for the pumpkins, I'm gonna stick to this small brush. On the top of the pumpkins, we're gonna do yellow, and on the bottom of the pumpkins, we're gonna do yellow-orange. So I'm gonna take my small brush, load that up with yellow, and on the top, just kind of loosely paint in yellow onto each of them. And then on the bottom, get your brush nice and wet, pick up some yellow-orange, and add that in. Now ideally what will happen is that the yellow-orange and the yellow will kind of blend in the middle, but if your paper just isn't wet enough, maybe that's not happening. So I would kind of encourage that along a little bit. Maybe you take some yellow watercolor, the nice wet brush, and you just kind of pet that a couple times until they start to blend. Don't scrub at the paper, but just gently pet the paper where those two colors meet to kind of help that blending process along. And then we'll get a gradient. So a transition or a change between the two colors. All right, let's clean off that brush, switching back to the medium brush. Get it nice and wet, make sure there's no more brown, and we're gonna go ahead and add in the green for the ground. Now I'm gonna go in first with this yellow-green. Don't need too much of it. And I'm just gonna add that in. You can see as I work, the oil pastel is not budging because of course watercolor and oil pastel do not mix. And that green really helps not only the porcupine stand out, but also the pumpkin stand out. Now this yellow-green, as you're probably noticing, is quite bright. And I mean, I like that. I like that about this green in general, but I kind of want a little bit more, I just want there to be a little bit more of a darker grass color that goes along with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick up some of this regular green here, maybe underneath the porcupine. Again, being very loose about this part. Just adding in some horizontal strokes, kind of mimicking how we did the oil pastel to help bring that texture out even more. Again, I'm kind of concentrating this underneath objects specifically. So that way you can see, like, yeah, right where the porcupine is sitting, that's where the shadow is going to be. If you really want to go for an even lighter color for the grass, once you have the green down, you can even take yellow very lightly. And maybe on the outsides here, because we're kind of doing almost like this fade of the colors, you can see that it kind of blends into the green. Makes this really beautiful effect because they're analogous colors, of course. And with that, the porcupine is done. So be sure to just, add any other finishing touches. If you want to add a full background, go for it. I encourage you to just have lots of fun adding creative things to this daily draw. Otherwise, be sure to share your artwork in the comments below, or just share them in general on our Fibo Village Facebook page. We'd love to see them. And we will see you again for another daily draw tomorrow. Bye, you guys.